I was born in 1938 at the cabin at the Empire Mine that my granddad built after the turn of the century. That was about 1904.
My mother's father was the first to come here, and he came here to work underground in the mine. And that's what he did all his life.
People came from so many parts of the world for the gold rush.
They had dreams,
We do a really good job in California and in the community telling the story of the gold mining, but we don't tell all the stories.
Up to just a couple of years ago, we were considered extinct. It's funny how smells and sounds never go away. Deer Creek's really important to our family because it goes all the way back.
Life before the gold rush could be considered basically a paradise.
Watersheds and the landscape were tended completely for the natural resources, for basket material, food, medicines, housing material, everything that was used in the life.
There was conservatively over 7,000 people that lived in our territory. And by 2 years after the gold rush, it was already dropped to 3,400 people. So half the population disappeared within the first 2 years of the gold rush.
The forests that they depended on gathering their food were being destroyed, and as a result they suffered from starvation and disease, and on top of that they were outright massacred.
The native people were basically considered as vermin, and they actually placed bounties on them in the 1850s. And that came from the call of our first governor that basically called for the extinction of the red race in California.
It was a real painful time at the gold rush and beyond.
When they were trying to clear out a place where the Indians were, just very, very brutal. The worst thing you want to ever read in humanity for any race, them hitting babies against trees to kill them because they want to save on bullets.
By 1867, there was only 500 natives left. By the census of 1905, there was only 84. And by 1934, when they created the Indian Reorganization Act, the population was down to 18.
These stories they're ugly. And I think that you see the worst of humanity in some of the gold rush stories because they were coming for land and for the gold. And it becomes a very a greedy tale.
Everybody knows the gold rush produces huge amounts of wealth. The people who made the money was the mine owners.
When the Chinese started coming to America for the gold rush, there was a lot of suspicion because they were very different. There was a lot of resentment.
The Chinese were actually banned from hard rock mining, but it probably helped the Chinese here in some respect because the Chinese actually supplied services that the miners needed.
The gold rush entered the psyche of America as this golden dream, but the parts that aren't told about the gold rush are the impacts, severe impacts on people and the environment.
After the Civil War, capital came in from overseas, and they began to go underground, and the mines began to consolidate and become big.
Hydraulic mining started, washing away of the hillsides. And with the muddy waters, the salmon didn't return.
It washed all of that gravel down into the streams and choked Deer Creek and filled up the stream channels all the way to the San Francisco Bay.
For our families, of course, it was completely life-changing, everything upside down, everything that you knew and lived upon, the trees, the animals, the waterways, the plants, everything was gone. And you look at old photographs and sketches of the Gold Rush area, and the mountains are naked, they're bald. And the waterways are moved. They moved entire rivers to get to the gold in the beds.
Probably the biggest effect is the amount of mercury that they use during the hydraulic mining process. You wash the gold and gravel over the mercury, and the mercury picks up the gold like a sponge. In that process, they lost between 10 and 30% of the mercury each time was washed down through the sluice box and into the streams. Over the course of the mining era, it's estimated that about 10 million pounds of mercury were lost into the streams all throughout the Sierras. And a lot of that mercury is still with us today.
The mercury's moving through the system here, but then it moves into the Sacramento system, the Delta, into the Bay, and then out to the ocean. And all along that way, it has a toxic pathway.
I have 2 kids here that I'm raising here that are 10 and 13. And, you know, they play around, and kids dig around in the soil, and if they don't know, they could be exposed to high levels of, contaminants that can cause cancer later in life.
My husband and my 7-year-old daughter and I live here on this creek, and every summer we swim in the creek. Every winter we come down to the creek and watch the storms come up, and it's a place of beauty and renewal for us. And even though I know as a scientist that my daughter swimming in the creek isn't affected by the toxins that are still in the system, a shadow goes over my mind every time she swims.
Gold for the Native American, especially the Nisenan here, what I've learned through oral history is that we did not value it in the same way. There are actually stories that warned people that gold could make you sick. It would take you over, and it was like a fever or something that you could not get rid of. And I find that to be quite ironic. There was a warning label in place, but no one read it.
As a result of the gold mining era, we had influxes of people from all over the world.
These people came here with their vitality. They came here with dreams. They left their families. And they knew they were going to work hard. They knew coming into this was going to be difficult. And sure enough, it was difficult.
Hopefully you can look back at the people who survived and gain some kind of lesson, I guess, from that history.
I think the most important thing that people need to know about the Nisenan people is that we're still here.
I am so grateful that I'm not the one in the river doing the hard work. I'm the one who gets to come and sit on the rock and just meditate and listen to this river and to feel the rocks, to feel the water rush over me. I am so grateful to the Chinese that have come to this area and my forefathers. I am so grateful.